Hello, and welcome to episode 104 of Relics of Orr. I am your host, Eric, aka Shongaku, and this is a show about Guild Wars, Guild Wars 2, and the Guild Wars community on the whole. This week, I am joined by a fantastic battery of co-hosts. Most of them are surviving cold weather. Yeah, battery. Greibach is really confused. Oh, spoilers.
I heard boundary.
Boundary. I speak the English good. How are you doing this week, Greibach? I'm actually going in reverse order of our typical round the image.
I'm doing well. We actually had snow here, which was surprising, and I had about a half dozen people stay the night because they didn't want to brave the snow in Seattle. So.
No.
How much snow did you guys get?
Just a couple inches, but when the roads freeze, we have really, we have hills that have inclines literally like that, and so a lot of these friends that might have manual transmissions and whatnot, like trying to get up hills in Seattle, they're just like, nope, just gonna stay home. So I had a friend that had to walk 30 blocks home because he couldn't get his car up that hill. So
Brutal.
I'm doing great.
Well, I'm glad that you're surviving and enjoying the winter weather. Or at least not being dead. Evie, on the other hand, is terrified of snow. It is his antithesis, his nemesis on some level.
The apocalypse is coming again. I need to go buy all the bread at Walmart before it goes away.
All the bread! Because you showed us pictures, and last time it was all gone.
Like, you go down the food store, like the aisles of the food, and it's just like, where's all the food at?
So do you have a plan? Because generally the best part of, surviving an apocalypse requires a good plan. What's your prep?
My plan is these 3 blankets.
Evie, we have enjoyed having you on the show. You have been a fantastic co-host. We will miss you when you're dead.
So I'm gonna play taps on a kazoo for you.
Someone who can actually survive the apocalypse because she has more than 3 blankets, hopefully. Although that actually may not help you. Kate, how are you doing this evening?
Hi everyone, I'm doing fine, and I will survive the snow because I'm from Wisconsin and that's what we do. It's gonna be 34, oh no, you don't even know. It's gonna be 34 on Thursday, and I'm wearing shorts to class.
There you go.
I'm so excited.
That's practically Alaskan of you. I remember having, I'm not sure if I said this on the show before, but I remember when girls, it would be 20 below out, and girls in my high school class in Fairbanks, Alaska would come to in miniskirts.
And high heels.
Mm-hmm. Miniskirts
Gotta look
and
cute,
strappy
though.
high heels.
I couldn't do that.
And they were tanned somehow. There had been no sun for like 7 months, and they were still tanned.
Magically.
Like, how does this happen? Oh right, tanning boot salons. They do very well in Alaska. But you guys are not here to listen about tanning salons in Alaska. Although Alaskan Winter might be, as he is awesome and lives in southern Alaska.
Southern Alaska, really Alaska, though.
It is. It is still. I mean, it's a bit warmer because you have the breeze, the actual winds that come in are generally from the lower 48, which is warmer, even with the polar vortex, than Alaska normally is. So you generally get a more mild winter. But, I mean, you're still getting like 12 feet of snow, and it's still below 0 the entire time. So it's not like it's that much milder than Fairbanks. And right now, Fairbanks is quite warm compared to southern Alaska. So there you go.
So how about that Guild Wars, friends?
Apparently there's a game called Guild Wars, and trudging through the snow to deliver us more news and more information, ArenaNet's intrepid, snowbound mammal, the Dolyak, has come to bring us more information, more joy, and various answers about questions that people have had about world versus world. You guys should definitely check it out. You can pick it up at the Guild Wars 2. Guildwars2.com on their forums. There is one. We have a link in the show notes, which we will link with the show when we get that up, probably tomorrow sometime. At least we'll try and remember that. But there's a bunch of stuff in there, and if you have read it, we have a few things to talk about. First of all, they were talking about NPCs was one of the big topics, big questions that came up, and their role in World versus World. which we've seen some changes based on the NPCs in the Edge of the Mists. and some people were wondering if that's going to sort of fold out. Do you guys think that NPCs, Greibach, do you think that NPCs need to be more prominent in World versus World?
I don't know if prominence is the right word, but I think that they need to be a little bit smarter. I've noticed that the Edge of the Mist NPCs tend to be at least a little bit smarter and proactive with, rezzing, building, repairing, all that kind of stuff. And while I don't think that we need to have NPCs that are anywhere near the level of what a player can do, I do think that, it's kind of lame with regards to, say, defending a tower or whatever, that for the most part they don't really repair walls, even if it's full on supply. And I think there could be some room for improvement on some of those things, and I think that they're trying to use Edge of the Mist as sort of a testing ground where they can see the impact with lots of players before actually upsetting a real game mode.
So, Kate, you've interacted quite a bit with the actual Edge of the Mist NPCs. Do you think that replacing various NPC spawns that we see in the current Borderlands and in the central map, the whatever they call that map,
Yeah,
I
it
spent
has
so much
some.
time there. Do you think that
some
would improve the quality?
I don't know. I feel like whatever they do, they'll have to be very careful, because then people will say, oh, the NPCs are carrying your server, so GG. They'll have to be careful about how they balance the AI element with the human element. But I do like what they said in the Dolyak Express about how they're working towards the point where it's less about coverage and more about how successful you are when your server is active. So, yes, good. I hope that becomes a thing, because we don't have coverage, and I want us to do good, because I like NSP.
They did mention that they were looking at metrics and ways to actually track basically say, okay, this is prime time for these servers, and track basically when, and allow points to scale with that. Evie, do you think that that's a reasonable answer for WVDub?
It's kind of a touchy thing, because on one side you're going to have people that are like, we don't want PvE at all in our PvP. Granted, it's already there, so they got to deal with it. But any added influence of PvE is just going to irk them. And then there's the side that's more like, it's PvE, it's PV door anyway. We might as well add some AI into the mix. And
The
there's
door
like,
begins to attack back.
I personally stopped playing Devil's Advocate ever, and as for myself, I really don't care about Wolf World. I'm just throwing that out there, mostly because it's, what's the word I'm looking for? The coverage matters too much as far as who's on at what time.
Yeah.
So,
And knowing that, it's very hard for me to get into it. Whereas, the Edge of the Mist, just an example, a match lasts this long, you go in, you have this point, blah, 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 and it's long enough where it feels epic, but it's short enough where that, do we have people on at 3 o'clock in the morning to defend our things, doesn't really matter. Because at that point, the match is just going to be over by the time people were actually playing for the most part.
So Greibach, as a resident coding expert, when you look at ArenaNet saying that they would like to do a metric based or a population based, is that a fairly straightforward thing that they can actually sort of almost bolt on? Is that a bolt on functionality to the scoring system, or is that something where they actually have to go in and start jigging around with the various additional parts of or core parts of the WW systems?
Well, it depends on how deep they want to get with it, and it also depends on how they've done it, because with programming, you can get the same solution in a variety of ways, but the way that you went to get to it can have really big impacts that are invisible to people that can't see the code. So I can only speculate on that. I would say that changing scoring to be based on population would not necessarily be that hard to add, but it could be extremely difficult to get right. And that's less of a programming challenge than it is a getting the algorithm right. Because I mean, just from a guess, because the thing is that if we're talking about the statement that you made just a few minutes ago, with having it be more about how well you do when you're covering instead of coverage. Well, if one server has 24-hour coverage, are they going to get penalized because the other servers aren't covering? I mean, how do you balance that exactly to say coverage versus effectiveness during coverage when you have mismatches? And that's the inherent problem, is that some servers have 24-hour coverage and some don't. And so, like, if you start penalizing people for covering better, then I don't know that that's necessarily good either. I do think I don't know. It's a really tricky problem, because there's nothing wrong with coverage by any means, and so, but there's also no real way to compete against it. And similarly, they've talked about the rewards for defending. There's basically no reward for defending in terms of like player rewards, and so, you know, that's why you get this thing of you get two or three Zergs running counterclockwise or clockwise in a circle, capping behind each other, because you get stuff for capping and you don't get very much for defending. But then likewise, you can't give as good a rewards for defending, because the defending count, like, when do you decide that they've successfully defended it, or for how long, or how many? Yeah. It's really tricky. There's all sorts of stuff like that to think about.
You'd think that what you would do is have ramping points based on how long you've controlled something. You basically say, okay, your server points ramp, so you start out and you're getting like 1 point per tick, and then and it goes up to like 50 points per tick.
Yeah,
That
but
seems
then
like
coverage becomes even more important.
Yeah.
Because if you're not on at midnight and the enemy server is, and they get 8 hours of ramping rewards, that exacerbates the problem. Which again, I mean, there's all sorts of these like interconnections that may not be obvious, but you know, if you think about what that would do and then you translate that into what we currently see, you know, it may solve one solution and create problems in several others. It's not an enviable position. There's no quick, you know, do this, and this, and it'll be all better.
There's no Band-Aid fix that they can do for this.
And a big part of it, Evie had dead on, is the time. You don't feel like you're making an impact in a week-long struggle as much as you do in a 3-hour struggle. But at the same time, the maps are so huge, and intentionally, because they want it to feel big and epic, that a 3-hour thing would never make sense for World v. World. And so a lot of these problems are much harder to control on a week-long time scale. Because any change that you make to scoring is going to be magnified by the length of time that it can affect the match. So,
on a completely different note, however,
Did something stick out to you from the Dolyak Express, Evie?
actually, not so much from the Dolyak Express as much as when they first started talking about World v. World, before launch even. There was these like mercenary NPCs that you could hire, or would go out and take keeps that were not defended by players for a certain amount of time. Whatever happened to that?
There are mercenary camps, so that would be your ogres, your skrit, your dredge, whatever they have now. They're different on Eternal Battlegrounds and the Borderlands, and I forget which is all where. But I would argue they're somewhat important, but they won't actually like go cap a keep. They'll go knock on the door and be like, "Hey, we're being annoying. Look at us. We're doing things," and people will be like, "Okay, yeah, we'll just mow over the NPCs." I feel like if they had the AI that was in Edge of the Mist, they would be a lot more of a formidable force, and that would be more of a, you know, something to compete over, rather than, oh, there's an optional objective. Well, we're rolling the map, so, you know, we might as well go do the thing that we can still do.
That might be a thing to do then. Give them better AI.
Yeah, the AI improvements are fantastic, and I'm hoping and looking forward to a time when they're more generalized across the game, not just in World versus World, but in in PvE as well, because these are formidable mobs. They're not, you can't just run up to them and knock on, circle kite around them. You can still take them on, but they're not. You're not going to face roll over them, and I really want to see that, in dungeons, especially. There's so many problems with dungeons right now. I'm getting sad.
So, from the Q&A, from the Dolyak Express Q&A, did anything else stick out to you guys in particular, or did we pretty much hit on everything that you guys cared about from that?
Yeah, I guess the big thing that stood out to me is they are looking into solutions to server imbalances, which is great, because you're never going to get the number of servers they want at an even population unless they,
Downsize.
weaken their transfer. Yeah, they'll downsize, or they, do something to their transfer policy, which I don't see happening.
Right. Well, there have been a few other changes to World versus World as well that they did not talk about in the Q&A. Specifically, the gift of battle was changed. It looks like they had
reverted, I think, or are they just talking about reverting it?
They said that at one point they added a rank requirement to it, but they have temporarily disabled it. What exactly was going on there, Greibach?
So this was one of those stealth patches, which nobody knows if it was unintentional or just slipped through the cracks for them to even mention it, or they had done it a long time ago and whatever. But basically, as of the last major patch, a rank requirement of 30 was put on for obtaining the Gift of Battle. And a lot of people, well, there were a couple distinct camps. World v World players didn't give a flying F about it because they're rank 1 billion. PvP players didn't care because they didn't do it anyway. And PvE players were kind of split down in the middle between players that dabbled in PvP, or players that dabbled in World v World and already were rank 30 or vastly above, or ones that didn't care about it / didn't care about legendaries. And then the people that really dislike World v World, a lot of them got really upset about it because it just sort of happened. And I'll go to Kate in a second about her feelings on it. I do think that the most agreeable thing about it is that it's really frustrating for a requirement to be added overnight when you could have done it before, and then you suddenly can't do it the next day because they just go, oh, kind of like with the karma boosters. Sure, maybe karma boosters weren't meant to interact with jugs, but it's really frustrating to sit on a stack of 10 karma boosters and 100 jugs and then have it just go, oh, that doesn't work anymore. Too bad you didn't use it yesterday. So Kate, you really think the rank requirement should be there.
Yeah, it has to do with what legendaries are supposed to be versus what they are. And legendaries were meant to be this visual representation of, look, I have done everything in this game. Look at me, I am awesome. See my glowing aura of awesome. Except PvP. Yeah, it's weird. The legendaries are in a really weird place. They don't include PvP. The World versus World requirement is really minimal, and I felt like it was a really good step to tie level 30 requirements to them. Okay, so me personally, I'm at level 40 in World versus World. I went 1 to 30 in about 9 days, and this isn't grinding. This is about just me spending time after school, after work, in World versus World. I find that an entirely reasonable requirement to show that you have spent enough time in World versus World to learn about the game type, to get involved, to, it shows some of a mastery, and you can circumvent it by using laurels if you want. But I don't have a problem with that for Legendary because it's exclusively a vanity item. When it comes to stuff like, people use the same arguments, Greibach pointed this out earlier, for Ascended gear, but the difference between Ascended gear and Legendary gear is Legendary gear is vanity gear, and Ascended gear is best in slot. So yeah, I'm disappointed that they removed it, but I do understand in the wake of, they didn't announce it, and they could have telegraphed it better. They could have said, we are going to make this change, so if you have it now, go do your thing, but this is going to be a requirement in the future because we want to get legendaries in a place where we feel like they're an accomplishment and not, a byproduct of having too much disposable income.
Evie?
I really think that for them to get legendaries to that spot, they need to make new legendaries and make them available in that way. Because everyone that's like, I see a legendary now, I just think someone's rich. I don't think they know how to play this game.
Yep. No, I feel the same way.
I think there's a couple really interesting things about that to say. The first one about sort of addressing what Kate said is I think it's been a very frustrating saga, in my opinion, on how legendaries have been and what's been required to get them. Everything from, they used to be vast. I mean, the precursors used to cost so much less back in the day, and that was partly because the economy wasn't developed. And a lot of people will say, well, that much money was worth more back then. And it was, but it was much easier to get that amount of money from actually doing content like dungeons. Because back when precursors were 30 gold and you could get a gold for a dungeon run, 30 dungeon runs is not that long for a precursor. And getting 600 gold from doing anything but playing the market is absurd in this game, as you can both, all three of you probably attest to, either for those of you who have gotten it or that have given up on getting one until crafting comes out. And with World v World, there were people that didn't like PvP at all, and that's a legitimate thing, but there were other options that they could do, like capturing supply camps, and most importantly doing jumping puzzles. And then they vastly nerfed the amount of World v World badges that you got from jumping puzzles by making it a once per day and not very many, and also being level bound or level dependent. Like if you did the same jumping puzzle on a level 3 character, you might get 3 things of badges of honor, but if you did it on a level 80, you would get 15 or 20, and that was really frustrating for people that previously had put in a lot of time. They just weren't doing what ArenaNet wanted for those badges, I guess. And then, so they nerfed that, but then they gave us a bunch of badges of honor if you had a bunch of achievement points, and then they added in a level requirement, and then they took it off. I mean, it's been, I feel like they just don't really know exactly what they want to do with it. I will say that I think it would be interesting if the reason they put it in there wasn't for legendaries and was in fact for some new PvE items that require Gift of Battle, like perhaps Ascended items requiring Gifts of Battle, so that if you wanted to get Ascended items with Gifts of Battle, it would be a really good way for for World v World players to get it, but it would require them to have actually played some World v World instead of just using their achievement chests. But that's wholly speculation. As for what Evie said, about needing new legendaries, I actually think that when precursor crafting comes out, we're going to get new legendaries that either don't use precursor crafting or don't use precursors at all and have a new way of acquiring them. Because like you said, you see legendaries and you just assume the person's rich. Similarly, after precursor crafting comes out, we'll just assume that they spent a lot of time doing just grinding their little thing up, and it's still not going to be that prestigious. But if they make new legendaries that you have to do something else crazy to get, well, the people that wanted their original legendaries can have them, and the people that already had them still have them. But if you are really into that prestige thing, then, you've got a new way to do it that won't necessarily,
now,
be easy.
Evie, we're talking about precursor crafting. Do you think they have said that they're probably going to use the level 500 crafting or possibly 600 crafting? Where's wood? I don't have any wood to knock on. So, do you think that if they went that route, they would be less likely to go the scavenger hunt route as well for crafting? Do you think that they might force you to either craft it or have it random drop? And how would you feel about that?
Considering what they've done in the past, they've always introduced one avenue at a time. So
you hate crafting as a general rule. So would that frustrate you, or have you pretty much given up on a legendary?
I've given up. I never wanted a legendary to begin with. I don't like the way they look. But as far as the reason I don't like crafting as it is right now is because it's a requirement for ascending gear. It's the same reason people that don't like fractals have just as much right to complain about fractals.
Because it's the only route to obtain specific things.
A ring. basically.
Well, you can get rings other ways, but it's
Well,
much more expensive.
that's how it was. Now it's back pieces, but semantics.
And
It's
amulets.
still the same.
Right?
Yep, amulets are
Amulets
still
are
locked
only
into
done
one
through
way.
laurels.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Duh. My head jumped ahead a few arguments. Don't worry about it. Ignore me.
Yeah, I think my problem with legendaries is that I do want something to work towards that's achievable, but yet shows my status, and they're just so invalidated by.
I want something to work towards that
everything
someone
else.
can't just buy.
Yes.
Speaking
yes.
of just buying things, that is definitely a problem. We've seen Dr. Legendary, and by seen, we've heard the stories, the tales of Dr. Legendary, the man who has bought a full set of legendary weapons for every character. How many characters does he have, Evie?
He has 2 of each profession.
He has 2 of each profession. He bought them with real money, because he's a doctor who works overtime.
And we call him Dr. Legendary.
The store is clearly, and gems are clearly a very powerful thing, at least for certain people. They have recently released a few items, actually, onto the gem store for free. It was a short, I think, a 1-day deal. Kate, what exactly did they put up on the store?
So they ran a promotion briefly. I'm not even sure how long this went because it was up for several hours when I went, oh my god, I need to log in. They gave away a free res orb and a free XP booster.
So what do you think was the goal of that? I guess it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, to get people looking at the gem store and going, hey, there's stuff we can buy. It's convenient. I don't know. I just wanted the free XP booster. I've got more characters that are going to 80. I'll be honest. That's all I needed.
See, I saw it and I was just like, I have so many of these in my bank just sitting around. There's no
XP
point in me
boosters?
logging on for it.
Oh,
Yes.
pro tips, friends. If you put, I can't remember, it's 5 XP boosters and some other stuff. If you put 5 of them in the Mystic Forge, it gives you a powered up XP booster, which stacks with the regular XP booster and the birthday XP booster. So if you go kill stuff with all those on, you're going to get a lot of XP. You can also stack that
Today I
with
learned.
food from Halloween, which gives you increased 15% XP instead of plus 10 from normal food. I have leveled a lot of characters,
you
my
can
friends.
stack that with maintenance oils,
Yep, that
which
too.
also give you an additional 10%,
Yep.
which can stack with potions. Oh, but those are food.
Oh, you guys crack me up. I just level characters doing my daily and then play on my mains for everything else.
Oh,
so
I
it
hate
doesn't really
leveling, so I
matter.
do it as fast as I can, so I never have to do it again, and then I did it again 4 times because I'm insane.
You are
It says
definitely
the
a
girl with
masochist.
3 thieves.
One of them lives on the EU. I only have 2 on my account, but I'm going to have 3 because Tengu are going to be a thing, and I am going to play a Tengu thief, okay?
Which is understandable.
Okay.
That just makes sense. Evie, do promotions like this incentivize you for the gem shop, or do you think that it's useful, actually?
It could be useful as a way to sort of introduce to the newer players that maybe haven't gotten, a res orb from a daily or whatever. That, hey, this is a convenience item. We're going to let you try it. And if you like it, you can buy some more.
Ooh.
But, I mean, as far as sort of incentivizing buying things, a much better way would be like the Halloween skins when the first year. You could rent with like silver, or you could straight up buy them.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
Interesting.
And that's a much more, I would say, I don't even know what word I'm looking for here, but I feel that that's a better way of trying to get people to buy items by giving them something that they could have permanently, temporarily.
So so that's an interesting thing. I'm not a huge fan of renting with money, real world money, to do that. Although if you make it cheap enough,
No, it
the
was
gold
in-game
conversion
gold.
is okay. That's right.
The first
it was
Halloween,
in-game
you could
gold.
rent them for like 3 silver, 7 silver,
It was like
something
nothing.
like that. It was relatively affordable, even though we didn't have much money by October of the first year. It was still affordable.
So
Well, that was 1 waypoint cost still. Like a far waypoint cost. It was still not
Yeah.
that much money.
yeah, that's pretty reasonable. So Greibach, when this got into the show notes, actually I think this was put in by maybe you or Mal, but you wrote essentially a entire blog post that we never posted. We should just take what you and Malchior do as show notes and make blog posts of them because they're amazing.
Just have like a back and forth blog post style where we're both just having a long ass conversation.
Yeah.
About
So
everything.
and then if you guys could throw jokes and stuff in there, it'd be fantastic. Rock Paper Shotgun has some of the best articles that they've done where they take two guys, stick them in a room, and they play a game, and then they just write what they said. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well,
Anyways,
heck, we could do it over video too.
There we
but
go.
yeah, I mean, it was basically what Evie said. My main opinion on it is that as a business, when you give away free products, it's essentially a form of advertising, and you need to have a product that people want to buy. Giving it away for free isn't going to make them want to buy it if they didn't like it in the first place. And one of the problems that some of the items in the cash shop have is that they're consumable. They're not incredibly cheap, given that they are consumable, and they're not that big of an effect. And on the third point, you don't want it to be too big of an effect because you don't want to have it be pay to win or pay for power by any means. But that poses a problem for how you make temporary items that are desirable, because I will never spend money on resorbs, and I will never spend money on experience boosters. I will never spend money on any of those things because their effect is too small and they're time limited. If I could get resorbs for like $25, maybe I might buy them once or twice, but even then, probably not. But a great example was that Neo Nugget, who I believe is in our chat, gifted me for Christmas a 2-week pass to the Royal Terrace, which I would never have bought. And I used it, and I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. And then literally about a week later, they came out with the permanent access to the terrace, and I bought 2 of them because I had tried it out. And I probably would have bought at least one, but I had tried it out before just for fun because it was a gift. And then having a permanent version that I could buy was fantastic. And so the idea that I wrote in the show notes would be to have something like the Rent-A-Skin, and you could do this for skins, but my original idea for it was for things like the mining picks. They could have essentially time-limited, real-life, time-limited, cosmetic mining picks that would be, say, the Molten Alliance pick, and it would last for a day from when you equipped it, and you would get it and you would say, wow, this is really cool, I'm going to buy one from the gem store because I really enjoy it. Buy a permanent one, that is. And they could extend that to a whole bunch of areas of the game and give out free versions of, but I think giving out free versions of consumable content usually is just going to show the player that it's not that big of a deal to use it, and it's not worth spending, $5 to $10 on however big their packs of consumable things are.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that I think it's actually good to throw things out there. I personally don't have any problem with them saying, hey, here's this thing for free for a little while. I think that's pretty cool. And
oh, sure. Oh, no, there's no problem with it. Just from a business strategy standpoint.
Yeah. Speaking of the gem store as well, they recently added 2 items to the gem store. We have our next musical instrument. This is rather exciting. They've added the harp. You can hold down up to, I think, 6 keys at once, and it will play all 6 notes simultaneously if your keyboard's capable of doing it. So you can now do chords in-game. It is very cool. I'm looking forward to it.
I can play chords.
If you do it too rapidly, it does have a 2. If you hit the same button really rapidly, and it's just that one or that combo of buttons rapidly, it will put everything on a 2-second global cooldown to prevent someone from doing the the horn thing where they were just like.
So I can't play through the fire and flames.
No, unfortunately.
No, but you can play stuff from Final Fantasy, and videos are cropping up of that already. So yes,
that is pretty cool. There's also a go ahead.
Shang-Ku knows how I am about playing music in video games.
Okay, when we were playing Starbound, and so we had a fantastic game of Starbound where it was 4 of us: Trivier from the guild, Israfel from the guild, Evie and I was like a fish guy, and they were, I think one was a flower person and the other one, and then we had 2 humans. Evie, not only did he get a whole bunch of MIDI clips, imported them in game so that you could play them on the little MIDI player. He went and found costume pieces that matched the theme of the music he was playing and would switch appearances based on that. So at one point, he goes away and he comes back and I'm like, why do you have a bandana and an eye patch? And then he starts playing Pirates of the Caribbean. It was amazing. And then we would go adventuring and he would play the Final Fantasy music. Whenever something would attack us, the combat music from Final Fantasy, what was it, 6? You'd play that,
6.
and then the victory music.
And then I play Victory Fanfare whenever you kill them.
It was fantastic. That's
literally all I did for like 3 hours, just played music. I didn't actually fight.
If there could be
I just
a
followed them around.
video of someone doing that in Guild Wars 2, like actually going out, playing the music while their friend is in combat. I know! And now... So
And
essentially,
invisible while doing it.
what they have added in Guild Wars 2 is the Bard class. It doesn't actually improve any of your abilities, but it makes it more fun.
That's awesome.
So there you go. So and because you're a thief, you're a rogue type, that actually fits with the Dungeons and Dragons thematic system, and so you can run around and, you know, be a bard. So
I finally had enough money to get the Unbreakable Choir Bell this year. Like, I always
Nice.
wanted one, but I was way too poor. And, like, the first thing that happened was I went to do the daily achievement for doing the choir, and in the free play section, somebody started doing the Harry Potter theme song. And I was like, holy crap, how do you do that? And they told me the keys for it. So I buy all of the musical instruments, even though I'm terrible at playing instruments, just because I think it's such a cool type of item to have, and I love supporting them putting those types of things
I'm
in
not
their
gonna
game. Like, I've
lie.
got all of them.
I'm macroed. I built macros for the instruments. So I just
That's
push
really
a button
smart.
and it play. So you go in and you get all the timing down. You figure out how long to hold the button down, and you can macro it. So I've got my G600 mouse, and I just go in. Oh nope, I'm holding it up to your guys' camera. Yep, G600 mouse has a perfect macro system because you have the depress option, the hold, the pause, and then the release. Oh man, I told you not to bring the adult Slinky onto the show.
Combo breaker.
Oh goodness. That is cool. So I always enjoy seeing those, and you know, that was one of the coolest things of Lotro that you'd always hear about, and you'd be like, that is so cool. And so I'm really glad, and it's neat that they've put so many
Different
cool
ones. Yeah.
different instruments into the game.
Can I
So
just
that's
point
exciting.
out that the fact that you use macros makes me feel you are a casual music player.
Oh yeah,
Just
totally,
wanna point
straight
that out.
up. See, Evie, you get angry when someone calls you a casual. Me, I own it. I'm just like, yes, I am a casual. It's cool. I beat Karazhan. You know,
It's
by
not
the
so
time
much angry as much as just faking things. And...
No, Evie, you have to pretend to be angry. We're on a show, drama. That's right. Be angry. They also added a chocolate box that allows you to change the size of your character. I suspect that this will be used heavily with various other things to make giant characters and tiny characters. So I'm looking forward to it. Because the chocolate box basically, it's like it came from Alice in Wonderland. One size makes you bigger, one size makes you small. That or it's
And
like an acid
everything
trip.
scales with it, right? Like, you see
Yes.
those giant spiders with the giant hands?
This will make it easier to be a giant spider with a giant kite or a giant...
Friends, I need to go to DS and find a chicken urgently. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no
I
idea
know
what you're
exactly
talking
what
about.
you're
There's a heart in DS. It's by the second puzzle on the wall where you can pick up chickens, but of course the chickens scale to the size of your character. So if you're playing an Asura, the
Oh.
chicken's about this big, but if you're playing a Char, the chicken's about, this big, roughly the size of me because I'm a short person.
If you're playing a Char or a Norn, it becomes a gold-laced
Oh,
Orpington.
that's right.
Yes.
Is that the one where the chickens attack you if you attack them? Classic
No, that's
Zelda
in Fields
Shadow?
of Ruin. But it is the one where the chickens are named Dinner. So, it's a candidate for my favorite heart.
That's awesome.
Speaking of things that are breaking people's hearts, we've recently learned that's right. That was a terrible segue, and I'm going to acknowledge it right here. Someday I will make a segue and not acknowledge it, and people will be like,
You're a
wow,
filthy
he's
segue
so
casual."
professional." I know, right? I'm such a segue casual. But Broken Hearts have recently showing up, and it's not hearts in the game like the golden ones. It's people's hearts are broken because they discovered that no one has properly beat the jungle worm yet. What exactly is going on with this, Kate?
So, Guild Wars 2 uses a scaling technology to scale encounters to, an appropriate size for the amount of people there. Unfortunately, the scaling is totally bugged on the jungle worm, and so as roughly 150, I think, is the optimal number that people are trying to get right now to kill it. As all of those people are there, it scales up and down. And I know for sure Blackgate's kill, I don't know about the ones on Desolation, but I know for sure Blackgate's kill was possible because the scaling dropped the worm by 1,000,000 health right as they were driving it down, just randomly, for no reason. And it's gone up the other way and down, and it's a huge problem because technically no one's got a legitimate worm kill because the scaling has determined whether or not they're going to kill the worm.
That is really unfortunate. The worm is an interesting fight. Evie, what do you think about this? Or actually, really fast before, apparently you can't pick anything up with the new chocolates. So if you've got the chocolates and you're getting bigger or smaller, if you pick anything up, you will lose the effects of the chocolates. So that is sad. And the worm kills is kind of sad too. Evie, what were you going to say about that?
I'm actually surprised that this issue hasn't come up already with another fight. I'm really surprised.
None of
that it's
them
taken
have
this long.
been. None of them have been close enough to, or hasn't been urgent enough to drive them to kill. Words that I'm trying to speak.
I actually
none of
expected
them
something like this to
complicated
happen with
enough where it's gonna be a
Tequatl
problem.
with the rework.
That's
It did
true.
it, and I was very happy, but now Jungle Worm is just like, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had a lot of
And-
things that move outside of their event area, though.
That is true. That's probably the reason why it's bugged, because just like programming their events from like way back in the day when they did a little like press, well, it wasn't really press conference, it was just like a little demo of how they create events. It seems really heavily tied to location on the map.
I'm getting a
Sure.
I don't know
a
if it
update
actually is,
from
but it
Malchior
seemed that way.
right now that there have been legitimate kills. People have started
Okay, good.
killing them inside of the actual event area. So now they just know that they have to tank him inside or somehow. I'm not quite sure how they do that. But so that's interesting that has an effect, and that's gonna kind of tie into a topic that we're gonna go into here, is the question of what's an exploit, what's a bug, and how do you know if you're exploiting? Recently, someone was basically said that he got banned for basically selling runs on Arapath 4, but Evie is going to give us a quick synopsis.
I just want to say that was a wonderful segue.
Dang it,
Oh,
Evie!
you're not supposed to call it out.
Don't let him know that he's doing things right.
No, I have to be in that
Jesus.
constant state of, I have failed as a human being. What can I do better? Now I'm going to be like, "Pff, I've got segues down pat. I'm like world first rate in segues. That's right. But anyways, so Arapath 4, someone said that they were banned for running it on Reddit, and they were like, oh, it's the worst thing ever, ArenaNet's banning me for selling runs, even though Arena has said repeatedly that they're actually cool with it. They think that that's valuable. Now, the issue that they had, though, is they discovered ArenaNet dev actually stealthed in, and by stealthed in, I mean he showed up without his ArenaNet tag, and got invited into the run, and watched the guy do the run, and the guy just exploited the snot out of the run. And so that's going to bring us to one of our big topics of the evening, is the difference between bugs, exploits, and sort of how that should work. So, Evie, what's your
It's
point of view on
not
this?
really that gray when you think about what this guy actually did. He was, quote, leaving the map to skip bosses and like mechanics and everything so he could get to the end and finish the dungeon without actually doing the entire thing, which is 100% an exploit. There's really no gray area there.
So then, how about these worm kills? Do you think that those count as exploit worm kills, or do you think that that is a bug that
if players were deliberately like climbing a mountain to get the worm to leave the event area so that its health would drop, then that would be an exploit. If it's leaving because it's like mechanically doing something and buggy and all this whatnot, no.
So there's an interesting thing. If you read the Blackgate initial strategy for it, they actually recommended people getting out of the zone, the event zone, to scale the health down. And they said that it looks like the health is actually bugged when it's in the event area with all the players, because they thought that there was too much health on each head with the, I think, like 4.3 million health or whatever. I'm not quite sure how you figure out how much health something has.
There was, I know on Blackgate there was a dev with them keeping track of what was going on, and he would manually reset the attempts so that they could do it again because it would bug out. So I know they had a Blackgate dev hanging out and monitoring that, but I don't think you can tell without add-ons, just a normal player. There are some kinds of shenanigans.
That brings up an
reading-
interesting question.
That's kind of a gray area in and of itself, because there actually is a way for a player to tell how much health something has, and it's by reading the info of the game whenever you hit something, and it like does the math, and you're just like, oh, you hit it for this much, it took away this much health from the little bar, so it has this much health. But there's a lot of iffiness going on there because data reading.
Yeah, and I remember when that actually first came out in World of Warcraft before, WoW just was like, Blizzard was just like, okay, you guys get all the data. There was a big snafu in WoW where they were like, is that okay to be reading that information? And like all the raiders had it, everyone was using it, and it wasn't super exact. Like some person would be like, we're still at 10%, and some guy's like, we're at 5%, and it's like, well, your numbers are messed up.
At some point, the players are going to figure out a way to get all the information that they need to really just get everything down pinpoint. And if the developers don't want them to see it, they're just going to have to repeatedly break their methods. And it's just going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I've seen it tons of times. And it's much better, I think, for the developers to just be completely transparent with their numbers. That's just
like transparency with numbers, but that can lead to some other issues with just like people going, okay, now we can make a DPS meter really easily because numbers are transparent. And
the problem with DPS meters isn't that DPS meters exist; it's the people that use them.
People don't.
And the culture the culture that develops around their existence.
Yeah.
To a certain
Here's
extent.
the thing, and this is actually a really big problem in WoW right now. I was actually talking to someone that's still playing WoW right now, and healing is a huge thing with meters right now in WoW, because absorbs are the king of everything. But when it comes to actual raid mechanics, those absorbs are going to protect you from that huge hit to your entire raid.
What?
So the effective healers, I'm semanticking right now. So the effective healers that aren't really good when it comes to World of Logs are actually better at those encounters, like say Restoration Shamans, Resto Druids and whatnot. And you actually have a case where, say, your typical Holy Pally is running this particular type of build with Mastery, for people that know WoW, for the absorbs, when their highest throughput is with crit. But because it doesn't show up on meters, no one's using it.
And this is why Guild Wars 2 tries to issue these things, because it gets super complex. Eevee stopped breaking things. But now getting back to the issue of bugs and that sort of thing, one thing that Malchior is like, he's like Navi, except not annoying. And so he's...
Hey, listen!
Yeah, so he's popping up in my corner giving me information. He's saying that they actually have found that they did scale down. There was a scaling bug in the way that health scaled up in the when the worm head was in the zone, and they dialed that down to fix it. So, Kate, do you feel then that it's okay that they were pulling him out because, okay, he's bugged inside the circle, so you pull him out? How do you feel about that?
If it's a matter of being able to complete content and players are circulating bugs by doing stuff to make content completable, I feel like that's okay, but that's a really gray area. I don't know if ArenaNet feels like that's okay.
I'm going to go to another game for another example. SOTOR. When it first came out, Sweater, whatever. When it first came out, a lot of the dungeons or flashpoints, whatever they're called, were unfinishable because they were bugged. This is an example, kind of a spoiler, but Revan in one of the flashpoints was unbeatable unless you had a very specific kind of tank. We had that specific kind of tank. So when we first did that dungeon, we went in there knowing that that bug existed, and we fully took advantage of our specific tank and completely negated like half the fight because of it. And the only reason we did it was so we could complete content. We didn't do it so that it could be easier. We did it so we could complete it. And I feel that if the developer cannot do complete content where it actually works and it comes to the players to come up with inventive ways to be able to finish it, that is completely their right.
Mm-hmm.
So Greibach, how do you feel about that? Coming from a coder perspective.
It's always going to be a super gray area. I feel like the more that you understand coding, the more gray it's going to be, because effectively there is no distinction between it's not working how we intended the programming to be working versus it's not working how we intended the programming to be played, if that makes sense. Like anytime that something goes wrong in the code, it went wrong because you didn't code it right, essentially. And the degree to which that is a problem sort of depends on what the specific bug or exploit is.
I'll give you this one that I was just talking about. Revan had an ability that literally someone put in too many zeros, so it would one-shot tanks. That was literally the bug.
I'm not talking about that.
For months. How does that even happen?
I'm just talking about in general, though, like bugs versus exploits versus unintended behavior. Because people that don't understand coding will call just about anything where you're not playing the way the developers intended you to play a bug or an exploit. And some perfect examples of this would be actually, I know a lot of people that consider champ circuit farming to be an exploit of timers being too short. I know, I disagree, but or stacking for boss fights or for any fight, or stacking in specific places that block line of sight, because to them you're not fighting in the way that you should be fighting, and you're exploiting the fact that the boss is too stupid to walk around a corner while you can keep DPSing it. And to a certain extent, that is an equivalent problem in programming to the boss or the encounter being too stupid to reset, or but to me those aren't exploits, and to a lot of people though they aren't, but to a lot of people they don't see any distinction between playing the game as intended versus or not playing the game as intended versus playing the game not as intended that is actually a bug. Like it's a super there's just a broad spectrum of what's considered a bug and an exploit, and I think most people would agree that if there is a bug and you are knowingly using it for gain, that in general that is an exploit, where it gets really loaded. In general, it is exploiting a bug in English. That's what exploit means.
Your wording, I would personally want to change one thing. Sure, using a bug that you can repeatedly, what's the word I'm looking for? Brain. Why work, brain?
Exploit.
Produce?
Yes.
Stop exploiting your brain.
Thank you. Using a bug that you can repeatedly produce to get some kind of gain from it is, by definition, exploiting. However, making that into a bannable offense,
I was just about to get there,
is when the gray area starts to come in, because you can do it one or two times and not realize it. then you can
Sure.
do it 10 times and be like, oh, that's okay. But when you start going into the place of, say, making exotic snowflake stuff and making thousands of them, that's an exploit.
Right, and that's the thing and that's what I was about to get to is that technically, according to English and according to essentially the raw definition, what I was talking about is an exploit. But most people equate exploit equals ban, and that's where the real gray area comes down because a lot of the time there's a lot of exploits that either are not that big of a benefit or just not that big of an impact, and ArenaNet just doesn't care. And it's really easy to be paranoid as a player about what is and isn't an exploit unless you're really clearly crossing that line. And an example was at South Sun, back when there was a permanent rich ore node at the top of the stupid Karka nest, and combining that with the fact that there was a Karma mining pick that you could buy that was account bound, and it did not have a minimum level requirement. And so literally, I parked 8 level 2 characters there at that node with mining picks, and I mined a rich ore node every single day with 10 characters, and most of them were level 2. And
nobody got banned for it.
And nobody got banned for it. But is that an exploit?
Exactly.
Kind of. But at the same time, I'm not using a like that. That's where it's hard to determine the difference between a software bug and a design. But many would say that it is a bug that it didn't have a level requirement, just like it is a bug that it didn't scale properly. Just like it is you would say the clear intent of all the items should be that they should have level requirements that are equivalent to their picks that have level requirements. You can't put a Orichalcum pick on a level 2 character, but you could put this mining pick on a level 2 character that could mine Orichalcum. So that's where this gray area gets. There's such a huge spectrum of the kinds of bugs, the kinds of exploits, and their impact on the economy, and the level to which ArenaNet bans people. And I have virtually zero problem with temporary bans. Usually when I hear ban, I think permanent ban. I think of temporary bans as suspensions. I don't really have a problem with suspensions and warnings. Like if I got suspended for a day or 2 days or a week, I'd be like, oh, that blows. But like, oh no. It's getting your account permanently banned that is the really scary part. But so far, I think ArenaNet's actually been pretty reasonable with permanent account bans. But as soon as bannings come out, everybody goes, "I was banned," and then they didn't say for 2 days. And I'm like, well, I don't give a crap if you're banned for 2 days. Like, get over it. It's a game. But banning your account for something, that's really scary. But again, they've really only done it for things like the snowflake, where you did 10,000 snowflake recipes and spawned thousands of ecto.
What was the cultural weapon one, like way back in the day? People bought cultural weapons and then Mystic forged them for exotics.
Oh, because they were only like 127 karma. Yeah, they're like 127 karma for cultural weapons, for one cultural weapon. And again, that kind of goes towards the like level bound picks that I was talking about. Every other pick has a level bind, and this one karma vendor doesn't have a level bound pick. It's all cultural weapons cost 15,000 karma, and this one cost 127. It's a very tricky subject, and it's nowhere near as black and white over the whole spectrum as many people would be led to believe. There's definitely some black and some white. It's just got gray all the way in the middle of it.
Well, one thing
My
that
general
does...
rule is...
We're gonna... So that was some good conversation. Do you want to give a general rule? Okay, Kate's taking a nap.
I heard a citizens in the distance.
Kate's like something in... No, wait. This has been... Okay, Evie, general rule. Then we're gonna get Kate's general rule.
The general rule I always go by is efficiency, speed, profit. If you feel like you're getting too much of all three at the same time, there's a chance you're exploiting.
And if there's an infinite loop where it's just like, oh, I can do this, and it's just, then yes, there's a serious problem. Kate, what do you think people should be banned for? I think they should be banned for stealing all the hammers from the Marionette event.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is not an exploit, though. That's just being a jerk.
Yeah. I think Yeah, definitely. If you're gaining too much money from it, if you're looking at something and doing it over and over, knowing that, you're getting an unfair gain. This isn't how it's intended to be used. I think that's an exploit. Whether you should be banned is a little bit gray. That's not. I don't know. That's not up to me to decide. I'm terrible at the numbers and thing. I don't know how it's going to impact the economy or whatever. I don't know.
Someone that Arena that does need to ban definitely is Scarlet, because she's a horrible, horrible person. And
she
she's gonna
kills people in entire zones.
In entire zones. So we are all going to take out our tinfoil hats, because we have learned the name of the next story. Warning, not spoilers for what's upcoming, but if you haven't played through any of the story previously, and you are just starting Guild Wars 2 and you don't know who Scarlet is, well, this will serve as sort of a recap. But we're going to talk a little bit about what might be upcoming. Eevee might even have a tinfoil hat. This is exciting. Wait for it. Oh, Eevee doesn't have a tinfoil hat. Put your tinfoil beard on.
No, he's got one. He just has to take his thing off for it. Ah, yes. We're ready.
Perfect.
Let's do this.
All right. We are ready to rock and roll. So, the next bit of the next living story is Escape from Lion's Arch. Apparently, we have seen that there have been a whole series of marks on the map in Scarlet's laboratory. There was one on the Priory, one on the, all of the Orders sections, Priory, Order Whispers, and Vigil over in Gendaran Fields. There were X's there, but then there was also an X on Lion's Arch, and apparently that is her target. Now, she has a Doom Laser, which she will probably be attacking Lion's Arch with, but we need to figure out, we're going to try and guess what is going to happen. Kate, what do you think is going to happen with the assault on Lion's Arch? Why do you think we'll need to be escaping it?
Well, judging from the trailer, it's gonna get nuked. Pretty literally. She's gonna drop bombs. You could see in the background of the trailer, the iconic Lion's Arch is broken. It looks like Orr. There's just like the half of the arch and stuff on the ground, fire everywhere.
And it's on fire.
Oh yeah, everything's on fire, which makes it better because of fire.
Fire makes everything better.
As we have seen with the weapon sets and stuff we released in the Jump Store, fire makes everything better. Yeah, it's going to be quite a
We're not going to let
destruction.
that go over the internet. We're sorry.
It's going to nuke the zone. It's going to be interesting to see what is left of what we know as Lion's Arch.
I remember seeing one shot where they showed some spoiler images, I believe. Not spoiler images, but sort of hint images, and there were broken Azura gates. And a lot of people assumed that those broken Azura gates were the Azura gates that are sort of under construction in that central area. But now it could be destroying the actual Azura gates that allow us to go places. Eevee, so what do you think? Do you think that they're just going to completely nuke Lion's Arch?
They've already said that they're going to put it in Vigil's Keep for now.
But what about in the future?
Can I? Is this realistic Eevee or optimistic Eevee?
Let's go with tinfoil hat Eevee. I like tinfoil
hat Eevee is that this attack on Lion's Arch is called Escape because something is going to escape from Lion's Arch and it's going to lead into an expansion.
I saw a lot of people saying the Tengu might open their gates to let in refugees from Lion's Arch, which I think would be a fantastic way of segueing.
You just really want those gates to get either blown up, damaged, or somehow we just walk on through.
Oh yeah, I crashed a holographic dragon over there in Dragon Bash to try and get through those gates, okay?
If those gates don't open, then they're going to have to do some serious explaining of how Scarlet was not able to get those gates open.
Maybe she doesn't care. Maybe she's like, bird people. Maybe she's
a plant. Birds eat plants. She's going to hate them.
Maybe she's going for the Tengu, what are they called? What are the manta ray people? The Tengu
Largos?
Alliance.
I guess, yeah.
We didn't see that as one of the ones negated on her shop wall. Tengu Largos Alliance. Next.
Also, Dolyak Rocket Alliance. That one wasn't crossed out either.
But yeah, that's just because they confirmed flying mounts and Half-Life 3.
Right.
So,
I'm still
Evie,
waiting for the Plug and Square
what do you
Alliance.
think is going to escape from
Okay,
Lion's Arch?
it's either going to be one of two things, and this is tinfoil hat of you. I don't like to
Abaddon.
believe this. One, a fallen god, who I will not name, or two, a dragon will come from underground because thump 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 thump.
Lazarus.
Exactly. Thump 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 thump.
No, I'm saying Lazarus, the Mersat.
Exactly.
No.
Thump 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 thump.
No more Mersat. Never again.
They will come back, and they will be
We
awesome.
killed them all.
No. Mersat have a special place in my heart, and we will see them on the Isle of Janthier whenever we go there. They're
Okay,
not going to
that's fair.
come from underground. Other than that, though, I really hope that Lion's Arch is not going to be a hub anymore.
So you think
And
that they
people are
might
going to
leave
like
it
slap
nuked?
me for this. I really want them to leave it nuked and make the Vigil Keep, the Chantry, and the Durman Priory the new hubs.
So decentralize
only
and
have
move
access
all the
to them.
services there.
hmm
That's an interesting idea. I'm glad we're wearing tinfoil hats. Greibach, pretty Princess Greibach, mistress of confusion, and this is what happens when Greibach grills a mesmer. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so I've thought for a long time that Scarlet's plan is to do one and or two things. The first would be to ascend to possibly be some sort of god figure, as in take the power of the ley lines. That all these confluxes of magical energy, the dragons, all these things, could be all about absorbing all this power into herself and becoming some sort of crazy god, potentially interacting with the fallen god who shall not be named, because he's pretty mad. And the second is that I think that she's going to try and take on an elder dragon. And given the marionette fight, and also what they've said about the marionette fight going away when it makes sense to go away, I think that Scarlet's going to attack Lion's Arch. She's going to use the thingy, the thumper, to awaken one of the three elder dragons that we don't have any visibility of, which would be Primordius, Mordremoth, and Bubbles, one of the three. Bubbles being the deep sea dragon that is unnamed at this point, I believe. This is a long-running Guild Wars lore joke.
Quick interjection, if I may. For them to bring back Bubbles would be a good way for them to justify us still not being able to Incanta. Just saying.
Sure,
Continue.
sure. Anyway, and so we're going to get a dragon attacking LA, and she's going to fight it in a Godzilla versus a Robutt Gundam, and they are going to beat the crap out of each other, and one and or both of them are going to die.
So we're
leaving
talking
the
Pacific
fallen husk
Rim.
of Lion's Arch. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Just like Pacific Rim.
Sold.
I
This
want
has
to
been
see this.
This has been my thought for a long time, that she is planning to fight a dragon and soup up forces, and now that she has a giant mecha robot, I am expecting a fist fight between them.
Imagine that while
Yeah.
you're like doing another thing. Like that's happening in the background.
Yeah,
while
they're
you
just
go
crashing
in.
through the zone.
Yeah, and like you're trying to do like a dungeon essentially through Lion's Arch with that happening. And so like you'll be riding along, all of a sudden the marionette goes flying somewhere, and then another place you just see more that would be incredible.
It's what people thought the Abaddon Fractal would be like, with the gods fighting in the background.
That would be awesome. We already have seen that they can do some stuff with we've seen the marionette, which is pretty cool, but then we've also seen the Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Sure.
and
That too.
yeah,
Who knows?
I think the Colossus should just randomly materialize. And
I
just,
think we're gonna have a
throw in,
giant fist fight, and I don't know what's gonna happen at the end.
Why not many Colossi?
Sick.
all of them with Grenth, because the
Yeah.
Colossus is a Grenth minion. Straight up.
No.
Yep,
No.
that is a thing.
This is for all of you new viewers. We wear tinfoil hats to protect
And
ourselves
there
from
are a
Eric,
lot
not
of new
from the
viewers.
aliens.
Hello, everyone. There's
The-
like
the
60 people
symbols-
in chat. I don't know how this happened, but you guys are awesome.
The
Yes, Evie.
symbols on his chain disagree with you.
What did the symbols on his chain represent?
Hmm?
What did this?
They're all. I may or may not. I mean, I don't know if this is intentional or not. This is really tinfoil hat territory, but those symbols are really, really. What's the word I'm looking for? I always do this.
Similar.
It works. That's not the word I was looking for, but it works. Similar to a
Reminiscent.
lot of. Yes, thank you. They're very reminiscent of Fey lore, as I was about to say Kanji, I meant Celtic, which is sort of where the Sylvari whole thing is coming from. I don't know if that's intentional, but
Yeah,
that's
and
the thing.
I still
before we
think
had that massively interview, I was gonna say what I hope is gonna happen is that it's gonna get so destroyed that all of our NPCs have to be moved elsewhere, and then massively, had an interview where they confirmed that don't worry, people, important NPCs will be moved to Vigil Keep. So
Look,
we
all I
know
want
that much.
is for that Norn to be running out of lion jars yelling, "Buy Ogden's hammer! My savings!"
As long as they save the guy who says, I like pancakes, and my pancakes liked me, as long as they save him, fine. Everyone else can go. I'm running to save that guy.
I think that what might be amazing too is to see how many scripts show up, because if there was this fantastic post on the forums where someone's like, if you notice, all the script in Lion's Arch have perfect diction. In fact, it's so good that it's better than anywhere else, to the point where it's like, how many script are in Lion's Arch? Because we've been in script Warrens, and they still use broken English, but they're perfect in Lion's Arch. Which means how
Yeah,
many
you know that's
script...
intentional.
Yeah, it's got to be intentional, because
They're
everywhere
in the
else it's totally
sewers.
different. Right,
There's
they're in
no
the
people
sewers.
there.
But how many Skrit are in there, and what's going to happen
And-
when this happens? Like, how many Skrit are going to either die or all of a sudden just show up, just swarming
And
everywhere?
there's a reference to the script being in the sewers in
I
the
know.
Yeah.
dialogue.
One
Yeah,
was
that's what I
like,
was talking
yeah,
about.
he was like, I'm going to go down into the sewers where all the cool stuff is. And the other one's like, no, don't go down into the sewers. That's
Why would
ugly
you go
and
there?
dirty. Yeah.
Because there's no people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so there's a lot of cool stuff that we could see with this. I'm kind of excited. Kate, if they do destroy Lion's Arch, you had a very fascinating idea, one that got me downright giddy. What was
Okay,
it?
I'm going to go against everything I've said thus far about being a theme park person and get super sandboxy tonight. I am less interested in the destruction of LA than I am in the recreation or aftermath of LA. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to involve the player base in not only, dictating the direction of content, but actually creating. I think there's a great potential for players to get involved in the recreation of Lion's Arch. They could be, they could set out several options. Say, this is a building site. We're going to start gathering materials. Bring your materials here, and contribute them in the way you want to. You could see a city actually built by players where, the bank is right next to the trading post because players want it to be that way, and the Mystic Forge is off in the corner because we hate Zamoros. We want him to die a lonely death in the corner. I can see this happening.
Someone's bitter.
Or, different kinds of skins for the town could be options for the players, depending upon how much of which material we donate. I think it would be fantastic. Greibach has a thing.
He does.
Okay, so now that you say that, they actually have a really good precedent for that type of thing.
Do
Ellen
they?
Keel versus Evan Nashblade.
They have a
Having
voting
players
system.
vote. Yeah, having players vote and have that determine how
And they
things
had a
go.
donation system. Yeah, I
That's
see
what I
this
mean.
as like
I think
the
I think it'd be a
culmination
much
of
more
all the
realistic.
little things they've done.
I think it'd be a much more realistic way of getting player involvement without it having to be sort of like donate these materials to make it this. Or, you know what I mean? Like they could actually have that be part of the living story where, say, the members of the Captain's Council are trying to pitch what to build where, and the players can vote on what they want to see come back first and where they want to put it and things like that. And we could have all sorts of cool stuff with the living story where, you know, players do it, but it's a set of choices that are determined by developers that players can decide where they go.
Which I
rather
think
than
is
being
fascinating
as open.
because then we get the multiverse and the differing multiverse that Colin Johansson hinted at one point. He said, you know, it would be cool if we could make it where there were actually divergences between servers.
Oh, how cool would that be to go tour all the different servers LA's? That would be so cool.
And can I just point out that I usually hate Sandbox, but I'm actually on board for this idea because it fits Guild Wars. It's cooperative. There's no competition with the Sandbox, so I love it. So this needs to be a thing.
That would
Yeah,
be...
please.
You heard it here first, folks.
Relics of
person that
Orr
hates
agrees on a
Sandbox
sandbox
is
idea. Ah!
This is the best day ever for Eric.
It-
We've been
it is.
All right, I'm going
I-
to take this off.
I'm
I'm sorry to my
kidding.
head.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead. All right, we're gonna take off our hats, move away from the crazy ideas that we have. Also, apparently, they will be replacing. So what I want to see is them replace the Meep race with like randomly selecting various animals from around, and you can choose, and that's like what you replace the
what race?
You know the racetrack with the Moas.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to see.
What did
then,
you call it?
The Meep race, because Meep always wins.
No, I read the orator. Meat got made into
I
drumsticks
heard
months
I
ago.
heard meat race.
Meat race.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just
like,
a bunch
what
of
is-
Char and Norn going.
What is the meat race? Yeah.
The meat
Okay, no,
race
all right,
is that
sorry.
cow thing
Continue.
in the meat race is the cow
Yeah.
event in
Yeah, that was
in Diacid Plateau.
yeah, that's a fun one.
That-
Anyway.
that is wonderful. But what's really exciting is that we have a massive living story thing right around the same time that Kate is introducing a friend to Guild Wars 2. So Kate,
Speaking of fresh meat,
Speaking of fresh meat, oh my goodness! We're gonna have to start writing down like linking potential things in between in the show notes, and I'll just pick the best one. Kate, how is your fresh meat doing in Guild Wars 2? What'd you guys do this week?
She is doing really well. She's speeding right along. She's now up to her mid-20s. I think she's played a little bit since last I played with her. We were around 24, 25. She's saving up for her elite skill. She's very proud of all her skills that she's gotten. We've got her traits, Nogira squared away. She's starting to learn. She's now divided into 2 different stats instead of 1. That was a very exciting change. We haven't touched crafting yet. We haven't touched PvP. But what I'm really excited about is because she rolled a Norn, her very first character, she's rolled a Norn. She's been
Good choice.
in Wayfarer, she's been in Diessa, she's been in Snowden. None of these have living story events. So she's got a very general idea of what the living story is. She knows the game updates every 2 weeks, because this is one of the things I told her to sell her the game, because, you know, I'm a good at propagating this game. But she hasn't actually seen anything happen. So my devious spirit face plan for this weekend, she's coming to visit. I'm going to take her through Lion's Arch. I'm going to show her all the jumping puzzles. We're going to map Lion's Arch. I'm going to tell her all about it. She's read Sea of Sorrows. She loves Sea of Sorrows. So we're going to go see that. We're going to go check out all the Mariner plaques, and then I'm not going to tell her anything about what's going to happen. And I'm just going to let her log in on Tuesday and see how she reacts.
What happens to all the people that are like logged out in Lion's Arch, like in the middle of Lion's Arch, and they
I
log
don't
back
know.
So they have already demonstrated tech to where I don't remember when it was, but there was a point in time where something happened, and I think people who had logged out in, say, like Queen's Gauntlet and various other areas that have closed from Living Story, they have demonstrated that they can teleport them to a specific location. So most people
You say
probably
that,
route
but I logged out in Zephyr Sanctum, and after it went away, I logged back in, and I was able to run around. There were no NPCs, but it was still there.
That's awesome. You should have stayed there forever and let people join you in Overflow. They die horridly. I like that. You just zone in dead. Actually, that would be appropriate. That would be awesome. I approve. That is a fantastic idea. Okay, very cool. That is what will happen. So we're glad that your friend is doing well. Is there any exciting or weird questions that she's asked recently that we should highlight for new players?
Not that I can remember. I don't think this time, no, there was any. She's really getting it down. She's doing very well at, learning the game for not having come from. She hasn't played any MMOs before. She's played a little bit of Portal, and that's pretty much.
That might be a good thing that she hasn't played any MMOs before.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of habits from old MMOs that people had to break to really be able to get into Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, she's getting really good at moving while using skills, which is great because that's something you need to learn to do, and it was something we did not do coming from Guild Wars into Guild Wars 2. So I'm very proud of her.
It's a hard habit to break going back, too. I've
Yes.
fired up Guild Wars 1 a few times and then promptly canceled a bunch of spells and wasted all my energy trying to move.
Yes, and then you're like, I like going into other games and like trying to dodge when I need to get out of like a telegraph or something. Like telegraphs are pretty common in MMOs now, and WoW even has them in some cases. And it's like I need to get out, and it's like, oh, that's not gonna happen. Okay, well, no dodge here.
I double tap in every game I've played since Guild Wars.
Why do you double tap? Just bind it to a key. Come on.
I have it bounded for jumping, but I just double tap because it's easier to control the direction, I think. I
You
don't
want to know something?
Jumping
This little button
casual.
right here, this one is my
You know how
dodge
many
button.
buttons I have?
And it also makes
called shift.
it also makes me dodge and jump
I-
at the same time
It's called shift.
because
I only have
Super
this.
Adventure Box.
That's why
That's
you
true.
bind it to something like R or E or Q
Or shit.
Mine's on V.
or Shift. Shift is a good
Shift
one.
Shift is my
my-
push to talk button when it would
Shift
work.
What is my shift? Oh, shift is my modifier because I have F1 through 4 on 6 through 9, which are on my mouse because I have keybinds.
Well, someone who doesn't need keybinds is Greibach. Do you know why? Because he now exists in Guild Wars 2 as an NPC. Or
That was
not
a
quite
weird
yet.
segue, bro.
Wait,
That was-
hold up.
that was a
Hold up. Hold up.
Yes.
This is part of a segment that Kate needs to announce.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
true. I'm
You
sorry.
skipped a segment.
Kate, we now get to the part of the show that all 65 of you have come for. You may not realize you've come for this part, but it is the best part of the show. It is the part of the show where all things that have gone before are forgiven, all anger and rage and arguments over the crazy sandbox versus whatever that other form of game type is that I don't even know the name of, something like a theme park or zoo or something, is now here, and we all are at peace when Kate says,
Hello and welcome to Cast, the podcast within the podcast, but the cast of other podcasts in the style of casts of other podcasts. This weekend, Cast, congratulations to Greibach for being made into an NPC as well as
big applause, everyone! Yeah, woo!
as well as various other members of Twit Guild, whose characters have now replaced the Biconics at the Marionette, since the Biconics have moved off to other business. Yeah, congratulations. I am so happy for you guys. In other community news, because we do have other stuff to talk about, Save Lion's Arch. Contribute to the wiki. If there's stuff you love in Lion's Arch, or if you just want to get the, save what Lion's Arch is now, contribute to the wiki, document all of the conversations, take screenshots, take videos. It's going to go away. And the way devs are promoting it, I don't think it's going to come back. People are skeptical, but I don't think we're going to see it ever be the same again.
I have to ask before we continue. Greibach, which lane do you own?
4.
Okay.
The
That's
Lord of
lame.
Four.
Explorer
That's lame.
Greibach is what his name is.
Oh. Are you, in fact, an explorer type when you take the Bartle test?
I
I need
am,
to take that
actually,
test.
as it turns out.
Can you link me
There
that
we
for
go.
post-show?
Just Google Bartle test.
Yeah, there's like a billion of
Yeah,
them.
like there's so many of them.
B-A-R-T-L-E.
It's like getting it's like taking a personality test. There's so many Bartle tests. Speaking of which, Bartle test is basically a system to determine if you're a killer, an explorer, a settler,
Achiever.
achiever, and what's number 4?
It's the communal, like you're a
The community,
socializer.
the socializer. So And you can easily relate it to the 4 extra classes or subclasses in WildStar, which is pretty cool. But congratulations on getting an NPC. Another member of Relics of Orr exists in Guild Wars 2. That's exciting.
The real question is, will I stick around after this update and the marionette goes away? Because I need to lobby to get my NPC parked somewhere.
Oh yeah,
And
I
here's
didn't
so
even
sad.
think about that.
And here's another thing: we need to keep up with the trend, and his character needs to break lore.
Yes.
Yes, it's
Oh,
true.
Ryan's character breaks lore. We
So
don't
much.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in post show. We'll talk about it in
Okay.
post show because it's
All
pretty
right, that's
serious.
good.
Keep going though, Kate. What else do we have in Cast?
All right, I have just linked in chat, and I will link in the show notes for people watching it after the show. There's a new real-time world versus world map, which is excellent. You plug in the server you want to look at, and then it does a scroll of as different objectives change. There's automatic timers for the invulnerable thing. Righteous indignation, that's the word. I just look at it as the fiery buff that makes me sad. The timers are on there, so you can use that for exploration. You can use it for monitoring world versus world as on your server, whatever you choose to do. Next, or not quite yet, I'm planning to do an Orient Temple March on Anvil Rock alongside Duke Witherheart from the EU servers. That's coming up. The tentative date is March 8th. I would love if you all would come and parade around and destroy Orr with me. That would be lots of fun. I'm still looking for a TeamSpeak that will handle a lot of people. If you know anyone that would let me borrow their TeamSpeak that would handle a lot of people for like 2 hours on a Saturday, please get in touch with me. I'm going to keep asking around, but hopefully I'll find one sooner or later. Saturday night is Late Night Levelers with Wash. You can come check him out here at this very same channel Saturday nights for some leveling, streaming Guild Wars 2 fun. And Eric, you're streaming too, aren't you?
I will be beginning to stream. This may be actually a Face Roll Network show because I will not necessarily be streaming Guild Wars 2, but I'm going to look to probably on Sunday morning or Saturday morning start streaming some EverQuest Next Landmark as a regular thing. I know that Chronicles of Tyria, a fantastic other Guild Wars 2 podcast, is going to be doing a Saturday morning stream. So we're going to have to figure out okay, when are they doing their Saturday morning stream and get all of that organized so that we're not stepping on toes, because I want people to be able to see that. But it will be Landmark for the most part, and I'm going to call it Saturday Morning Sandbox, which I'm
And I
somewhat
may or may
excited
not
about.
join you randomly because I also have Landmark.
Yes, there will
me as
definitely be
well.
guest appearances, and I believe that we may actually end up working fairly significantly with the EverQuest Hammer, EQ Next Hammer team, because Lewis is also on there, and I have him, and so we've been talking back and forth. So cross fingers on that. We're looking forward to it. I am absolutely thoroughly enjoying EverQuest Next Landmark. Now, if you guys do not like Minecraft, or you don't like games that don't have any combat and it's all about digging, don't go and get Landmark, okay? Do not. It's alpha. They don't want anyone in there who doesn't like that style of game. So if you get in there and you buy and get in, they do offer a full refund. But yeah, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And if you guys would like to have more information about Relics of Orr, you can head over to our website, relicsoforr.com. You can also follow all of us on our various Twitters. You can follow me either at Shongaku or at Relics of Orr. I will be using at Shongaku to talk about the Saturday Morning Sandbox show, so that we don't have cross signals with Relics of Orr. You can also follow Kate at Damn Violas, those cursed slightly larger than violin instruments. I will now say that from now on because I got that wrong for like a year. I'm embarrassed. I was a band nerd and I forgot that wrong. Ugh. So you can follow her there. You can follow Greibach at King Street Greibach, and Evie at Evenus. They all have... Greibach has fantastic things to say. Evie generally has pretty good things to say, although he doesn't tweet as much. But that's okay. And if you guys have any questions for us, you can send us an email at relicsofore@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at relicsofore online, and you can also head to our website, relicsofore.com, and go to our forums, sign up for the forums, and Kate, if you have questions, Kate will generally be able to get an answer to you fairly quick, because she spends a fair amount of time, or at least once a day, goes through and checks for all the new things on the forums. So she will definitely be able to get back to you on that, or she'll throw something at me and say, hey, Shongaku, Go talk to these people. We also have a... We would like to get you guys... We'd like to expand sort of our community section, our cast section, by getting you guys to send us things. Either questions you have, or if you can send us links to things that you think are cool, like community, fan art, or cosplay... Any of those sorts of things that you think would be awesome to highlight on our community cast, we'd really like you guys to send us that stuff at relicsofwar@gmail.com, which I've said like 30 times now, because this is how I do outros. They're really long and very unspecific. So we'd love to...
And we need to see more cosplayers for Guild Wars 2.
There are some amazing cosplayers. They are almost all doing Norn armor, Norn Tier 3 cultural armor, which is kind of entertaining. There's also some Mesmer armor I've seen. But yeah, no, we'd love to see more of that, and I'm certain that there are quite a few. So go ahead and send us any of that stuff that you guys find that you think that we should highlight on the show, or you'd like us to talk about. And just thank you guys for watching. This has been a fun show. We like seeing all of you guys turning out, and we're going to move on to our post show. So we will see you guys, though. If you're gonna leave now, we will see you guys in game. Have a good evening.